Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Patrons video today that I'm making for Dinnerhe as part of their custom monthly music review. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves the track on the screen. This is Kimi ni Muchu of the Hikaru Utada live sessions from Air Studios. And we've got lyrics as well for this, don't worry, from Dinnerhe. Thank you very much for those. So we're going to listen through this track from start till finish. I'm going to hear what we think. Let's go, let's do it. Hang on, did we get the start of that? There we go, we did the start of it. Get the lyrics up. Because I think I've listened to this track before, I recognize the piano line. It's nice to hear her play it live. The band with her, you know? I think part of it is knowing that it can be done live, you know? Because like a lot of bands these days, a lot of musicians, right? They make music and they record all these incredible, fantastic compositions, but it's actually very difficult for them to play it live because they either got too many things for themselves to play or they can't find people that can actually play it. So it's always nice for me to hear someone do a live performance, you know? So it's verifiable. I mean, the combination of electronic kit here and the very quiet left hand on the piano is nice to listen to. There's just a definitive sub-layering going on here. How are they doing the overheads? Like, how are they doing the overdubs? Because I'm curious about that, you know, like how do they get the overdubs down when you've got Hikaru Utada in the center? Do they have extra vocalists helping her out? Do they have a backing track that she's singing along to where it's just her backing vocals and some sort of rhythm accompaniments? I like the little that kind of little bubbly sound there. That was kind of nice. That is a transitory thing. Unusual texture. Very used to the Portamento 808 bass there. I like that's kind of exploring the range of the keys before. I think the power of it comes in all the different instruments here, like different types of sounds of drums, different percussion, different bass instruments. We're not just sitting on one sort of voice. We've got several voices for different parts that are doing a similar thing. Constant sense of exploration throughout the piece. I mean, the vocals are fairly loyal to the original, you know? But apart from that part, that was very unusual there. What was going on with that? Why do I not recognize that? Kind of sound like the synthesizer's crying out for their mother, you know? I mean, like, it's a very gentle kind of exploration in there back into it. The bass is quite dominant in this part. Got a great sense of dimensionality to it. Her head voice is tremendous. I do like the way she explores that and how it's very loyal to the original, was kind of making the live version her own with the little various extra inflections and stuff like that. Like the note choices are very close to the original, obviously, but it's just there's just slight differences in the way she's delivering the lines. I don't know how far along this was between the release and here. She might be a little bit older here, so that's why her voice sounds a little bit different, you know? I like the percussion, the 16-note grooves they have, the da-da-da-da-da, da-ba-da-da-da-da-da, you know, like it's intriguing because she's got a slower delivery of those vocals in the centerfold, and it's just nice to have contrasting rhythms on various elements, especially from a groove perspective. Still a quarter note accent there, but these sub layers are making more texture to that. Okay, what did I think of that track? What did I think about it? If I'm honest. Because again, we got the lyrics here, thanks to Dinnerhe for these. I'm crazy for you, oh someone who can upend my whole life. Trying to figure out how the music connects to the vocals, you know? Trying to figure out how the music connects to the vocals. You know, you got stripping off the shoes and armor once the door auto locks, what comes next is all private. We know what's going on with that, you know? Success makes a shadow follow you, stripping off the shows. The opening moves always fly under the radar. It can't be stopped once the spark is lit. There really are people who are always quiet and terrible at lies. So this is the conclusion of my review of Kimi ni Muchu from Hikaru Utada, the live sessions from Air Studios. What I think this track was about, I think this track is about someone who is crazily in love with someone, cannot cope with their existence, not in their life the way that they want it to. And they wanted to find some sort of relief from that, whether it's behind the auto-locked doors or now the other way, sort of psychological or emotional kind of rest. It's interesting, like, you know, like I'm not really sure how the music compares to the vocals or the lyrics. Like the story, you know, tells us someone who is frenetic in their inability to be able to cope with the situation that they're in. And the vocals are solid, you know, like they're catchy vocals, they work well within the genre. It's a very relaxed kind of performance there. There's not a whole lot of sense of urgency from them. It sounds like someone who's kind of having a dream about all this stuff, like they're dreaming about that person in their sleep. So maybe that's the kind of vibe we're going for there. That's it. And then that's fine. There's no shade in that, no shame in that. If we're dreaming about the person with that kind of like soft kind of delivery there for a lot of them outside of a little bit more sort of like solidity in some of those backing vocals there with a less kind of breathy performance there to contrast Hikaru Utada's lines. Yeah, it could just be the way that she's singing. She's singing well, like her hidden truth voice is great. Her use of vibrato and some legato parts, which are kind of dope there. You know, like great understanding of music theory and composition as well, with the way that she's approaching her different lines there, and the fact that she got those harmonies to work in the first place is also great. I can understand why it's a catchy track. There's enough movement and variety melodically and rhythmically in the verse parts on the vocals to make it interesting throughout, and then we have the return to those parts in the chorus, which are solid. You know, like I think it's cool. I don't understand how the tone of vocals connected to the lyrics, but that's just her style and people appreciate it. So yeah, the track at 4 minutes, I think it made good use of time. Most of it was filled with like verse and chorus parts, as well as some exploration of those different bass and sort of piano and drum and synth and all these other sort of elements there in sub bass. There's a lot of stuff going on in the mix there to keep us entertained. There was one part where like it sounded like someone was crying out on a synthesizer. So maybe that was Hikaru Utada crying out for that person that's driving her insane. That's her internal screaming. That's how I interpreted that synth part. Outside of that, it was fairly peaceful and pleasant to listen to. There was a little bit of sense of urgency with the piano there, but there were no aggressive textures. So it was almost like, it was chaotic, but it was like chaotic underneath an ocean of pristine water. I mean, like, it was just very safe. The arrangement itself was very safe. The most explorative part of it was the textures, like some of those interesting percussion tones there. It's what I would expect from a musician of Hikaru Utada's tenure, to be able to get access to different interesting sounds It's kind of like what I hear of stuff from like musicians like Kanye West. Not that I'm comparing the vocal styles of the two, but that like Hikaru can find, or that Kanye can find access to like incredible sounds and put them in his music, and that's part of why his music is special, or what at least was special. With Hikaru Utada, some of the sounds she's got in her tracks are very kind of interesting and unique, and that's something that was included here. I think that's one of the things I liked about this, was interesting use of percussive textures there and timbres there. I wasn't really a fan of the Portamento 808, though, the smoothness of that, mirroring the piano sound. I just kind of felt like we were kind of not really trusting the listener to be able to listen through this entirety of this track without needing to switch up the bass textures. I don't understand why I was so frenetic with the need to adjust, but like whatever, I guess that's just what it is. That's the decision I made creatively, and I thought that I'd make for a more interesting performance. I just can't understand it from like a compositional perspective, aside from the fact that they're nervous that they will not stimulate the listener enough without it. Maybe they were like, oh, if we have one instrument doing the bass line and the piano line, maybe people will already heard that in the Spotify version, so like they won't want to hear it again. When most people are looking at a live performance or a live session to hear the original song played live. You know, like if it was a different melody or a different bass line that was performed, but it's just a modulation or like an exact like cut and copy of what was going on with the piano line, except on like an 808 or on like another sort of bass synth or whatever. So yeah, well, that's just a small kind of, I don't understand why they did that from me. Outside of that, though, I think that, you know, the performance itself was good. There was a note out of place there. I think it was nice to have the right hands dance on top of the vocal parts there. She was clearly well positioned in the mix alongside the bass, the strings. Well, not the strings necessarily, but just the other sort of synth pad, percussive, atmospheric textures in it. And it was truthful to the original. The theme itself, again, just before I continue, it did sound like someone who was sad. They were a bit sad. It didn't necessarily reflect the severity of the lyrics for me, but maybe that's just an issue with the mistranslation, and that's also subjective. The recording, mixing, and mastering was great. The 808, the kind of sound that we had there in the middle part, I thought that was too loud for the mix in relation to everything else. It was weirdly positioned panning-wise. I wasn't totally a fan of that. Outside of that, everything was great. I liked how the drums were done, as well as the vocal, piano parts, etc. There was some interesting panning decisions made there. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if they were going for like a sense of true dimensionality with the way things were panned and placed as sub-layers and main parts, but it was very unusual. It didn't sound like a live performance to me. It did, because it was recorded in a studio where things were, they attempted to make it sort of sound pristine and kind of perfect. It was a weird situation for me. I think it would have been better if they'd done it in front of like a live audience or something like that. I've never really understood why people need to do live versions in studios. That's literally just what you're doing, but you're recording it. You know what I mean? Like you're recording yourself in a studio. That's no different from any other studio take. Like most bands record live in a studio. They just don't have an audience. But with these live sessions from Air Studios, I think it's Air Studios wanting to sort of like promote themselves. And Hikaru sang well. Her vocal performance was captured really effortlessly and respectively by the engineers and everyone else involved, backing vocalists as well. Things were staged reasonably well on the frequency spectrum. I'm not sure about the panning some of the instruments there. I think it was a little bit too creative for my tastes, but I can't understand the sense of it. I suppose I wanted things poking around from left to right. Like again, they were like, so that bass part wasn't in the center. It was like in like Portamento bass was like 15 degrees to the left. I don't understand why they did that. I don't think there's like a reason for it. Bass is, you kind of don't want to screw with bass in the frequency spectrum because like it gets really weird when you spread it. It has some sort of dissonances or weird kind of warbly bits. But you know, outside of that, you know, that's basically how I felt about it. There was dynamic range to it, which was good. It was nice and loud without pumping. And this is effectively my review, my SP Patrons video of君に夢中, live version from Hikaru Utada. Live sessions from Air Studios. Hopefully enjoyed it. If you did, please go show us some love via the various social medias and their Spotify page. Stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support local musicians and artists at this point in time. As either hell more than ever thought of crazy stuff going on in the world, and I'll catch you in the next SP Patrons video. Spiderhands Out.